What if success is not a finish line, but a relocation? What if the life you say you want requires a version of you that you have yet practiced being?
Most people prepare for the climb. Almost no one prepares for the altitude. Today, we're exploring the identity gap that appears after achievement and why many people quietly unravel what they worked so hard to build.
In 1911, Roald Amundsen became the first person to reach the South Pole. Years of preparation, precision, and relentless focus brought him there. He defeated Robert Falcon Scott and secured his place in history. What history remembers is the triumph. What is rarely considered is what happens when the defining aim of your life is suddenly complete. When the horizon disappears, something subtle begins. The question is no longer, can I reach it? The question becomes, who am I without the reaching?
We tend to believe that achievement settles identity, that once we arrive, we feel resolved. But striving shapes us, it structures our days, organizes our emotions, and supplies tension and direction. The climb gives us a role, it gives us narrative. When the goal is reached, that tension dissolves, and many people experience something they were not expecting. Not failure and not regret, something quieter than that, a kind of absence. The version of you that was fueled by pursuit has completed its function. If you have not consciously grown beyond that version, you can feel temporarily unanchored.
If a conversation about reality creation, the emphasis is almost always on generating results. Visualize the outcome, persist in belief, align your emotions, but very little is said about stabilizing identity after the result appears. Because success does not simply add something to your life, it removes something. It removes striving as your organizing principle. And if striving has been central to who you are, the one who pushes, proves, survives, rebuilds, then stability can feel undefined. You may have wanted the outcome, but you have not yet rehearsed being the person who lives inside it calmly.
This is where people often use the language of self sabotage. But sabotage implies destruction. What we frequently observe is identity recalibration. Your nervous system prefers coherence over expansion. If you've spent years telling yourself internally, I'm the one who's almost there, then arrival disrupts that narrative. Disruption produces discomfort. Discomfort seeks familiarity. And familiarity restores the old structure. It does not require conscious intent, it simply requires a gap between your external achievement and your internal self concept.
Consider how many entrepreneurs thrive in early chaos. Urgency sharpens them, scarcity makes them decisive, pressure fuels creativity. But when the busyness stabilizes, when income becomes predictable and systems run smoothly, a different temperament is required. Consistency over adrenaline, stewardship over conquest. If identity does not evolve, volatility quietly returns. New risks are taken unnecessarily. New urgency is manufactured, not because the success failed, but because stability did not yet feel like self.
The same pattern appears in relationships. Longing carries intensity, pursuit has electricity, the story of almost contains drama, but mutual presence is quieter. There is less tension and less friction. If someone equates intensity with aliveness, calm connection can feel unfamiliar. Small doubts are entertained, minor conflicts are amplified. The emotional tempo of pursuit is restored. Again, not consciously but coherently.
Identity has momentum. If you always understood yourself as the underdog, you are structured around opposition. If you've always been the fixer, you're structured around problems. If you've always been rebuilding, you're structured around loss. Remove opposition, remove crisis, remove loss, and you remove the contrast that defines you. Without contrast, many people feel a subtle vagueness, and vagueness can feel unsafe.
Mm. This is not a moral issue, it is structural. Human beings orient around repetition. We learn who we are through pattern. And when pattern shifts abruptly, the self destabilizes. So the deeper creative act is not merely achieving the goal, it is practicing the identity that can sustain it. Not the celebratory version, but the ordinary version. The one who wakes up in stability and does not need to prove anything that day.
There's also a temporal dimension to this gap. During pursuit, the future pulls you forward. The desired version of you lives ahead, and that distance generates energy. After achievement, the gap closes. The future collapses into the present. For some, that feels like completion. For others, it feels like contraction. If growth has always meant expansion, stabilization can feel like stagnation. But expansion and integration are different phases. Expansion increases territory, integration increases depth.
When integration is skipped, rest is mistaken for regression. People assume something is wrong because intensity has lowered, so they can chase the next expansion before inhabiting the current one. This creates a cycle: goal, achievement, restlessness, new goal. The identity of the climber is reinforced, but the identity of the inhabitant is never developed. Eventually, life becomes a series of peaks with no valleys lived in.
Many identities are built around resistance. I rise despite. I endure through. I prove them wrong. These identities build resilience, but they're transitional. If you continue to operate from resistance, after resistance has dissolved, you will look for something to resist. Not because you crave conflict, but because resistance feels familiar. The rarely discussed maturity in reality creation is the capacity to stay, to remain when nothing is breaking, to remain when nothing needs proving, to remain when the external world is no longer demanding reinvention.
So here is the quieter progression. First, we imagine the outcome. Second, we achieve the outcome. Third, we attempt to protect the outcome. But the fourth step determines longevity. We normalize the outcome. We allow ourselves to be the person for whom this level of stability is natural. Ordinariness is what makes something sustainable. A steady relationship, a stable business, a healthy body. They're not dramatic every day, they are integrated states. Before we close, notice something subtle. The version of you who was striving often believed peace would feel extraordinary, but peace, when it finally arrives, feels simple, and simplicity can be mistaken for lack. The work then is not to generate more intensity, but to recognize sufficiently without embellishment. When stability feels unfamiliar, that is not a sign you have chosen incorrectly. It may simply mean you are practicing a new identity. And practice requires repetition, patience, and a willingness to remain present long enough for a calm to feel like home.
Roald Amundsen crossed the ice and reached a geographic point. The deeper crossing was psychological. Could he be someone without a frontier? That question extends beyond exploration. Can you be someone without a struggle to define you? Can you live in a season that's not about becoming, but about being? Achievement expands circumstances. Integration expands capacity. Without integration, circumstances drift back toward familiarity. With integration, they stabilize. Perhaps the real summit is not the goal you reach, it's the self you can calmly inhabit afterwards. And if this conversation resonated with you, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it, and hit the bell so that you're notified when we release the next exploration. These conversations are about deeper understanding. Until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.